Into the state of care homes in the UK, which has found that some elderly people are living in conditions described as disgusting, even in homes that are rated as good by regulators. Relatives have been telling us stories of their loved ones left to sleep in soiled bedsheets, with one even finding maggots in a wound. But it's not just a lack of basic care. Sky News has also found that fewer than 1 in 20 complaints are actually inspected by the Care Quality Commission, the regulator. Our social affairs correspondent Becky Johnson has this special report.
Hello, Mum. Hi, Mum.
This was Kay's mother, Brenda, in a care home in Sheffield not long before she passed away. What is the worst thing about what happened to your mum in that home?
It's the injuries, because she had more bruises in that care home in that time than what I'd say she's ever had in her whole life.
That looks painful.
Also for them not being open and honest with me of how it happened. This is one where they said that she'd wrapped her straps round her arm.
The nursing home was rated good by the Care Quality Commission that regulates care providers.
When my dad passed away, we had to sell the house to pay for a care fee. So I think it was something just under £108,000 of my mum and dad's money that we paid to Bond Care in 2 years. But this is when she first went into Chatsworth Grange. So
that was when she first went in,
yeah,
just sitting up?
Yeah.
But in the home, she was often left in bed all day.
They can't find any record of her having a bath or shower in the care home. She only had 4 to 6 bed baths a month.
Kay asked why they didn't get her up more, but was told use of a wheelchair was not included in the fees.
And she just told us, I've told you, you get her a wheelchair and we'll get her up.
Across the country, Chris has kept recordings of the video calls he had with his Aunt Kathleen.
See you soon, sweetheart.
Yeah, God bless you, love.
He'd become concerned about the care at her nursing home in Herefordshire even before he got a call with some horrifying news.
There had been maggots in her skin cancer.
Maggots in a wound?
Yeah. Yeah. In a clinical environment.
How do you feel about that?
Disgusted. Disgusted that it happened. More disgusted that they allowed it to happen. She was paying a small fortune to be well cared for.
He was sent an email about it, including pictures to show the wound had been cleaned. Do you think she would have been aware of it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How could you not be? 3 weeks later, she was dead. Despair like that is a killer.
The care home was, and still is, rated good.
If that's good within our current care system, I hate to see what needs improvement or poor would be.
Over several months, we've been speaking to many families who've had serious concerns about the care their loved ones received. We've heard repeatedly of frail, elderly people being left for days on end in bed, unwashed, sometimes in soiled sheets. We've heard of food and water being left out of reach, leading to weight loss and dehydration. Yet when families try to raise concerns, they end up feeling doubly failed, first by the care home and then by the regulators, who often take no action. We can reveal that over the last 2 years, almost 68,000 concerns were raised with the CQC about homes that can provide care for the elderly. But it only went to inspect in a tiny fraction of cases, just 3.6%. In the few homes it did inspect as a result of complaints, almost 1 in 5 needed to be downgraded.
Yes, we can definitely offer you some advice on that.
Care Rights UK is a charity that supports over 1,000 families a year who are concerned about their elderly relatives in care homes.
Our sense is that poor care seems to be getting worse, and that the problems that people are experiencing are becoming more and more complex. The inaction by the Care Quality Commission over a number of years has left people at risk and has created a dangerous situation where people who are experiencing poor care are too afraid to speak out about that poor care because they're not listened to, they're not heard, and nothing happens as a result. It's
It's the injuries, because she had more bruises.
We showed all this to the man in charge of care home inspections at the CQC. They describe the CQC as not fit for purpose. Do you agree?
I think we need to improve. We were described by the Secretary of State as not fit for purpose.
Do you think people are owed an apology? Because all people have when they're looking for a care home for their loved one is the rating given by the CQC, and many of those are now years out of date.
Yeah, we do need to get ourselves into a position where we are doing more inspections. So those are the changes and improvements we're trying to make to our processes.
Do you apologise?
I think that they should have got much better care. The care that they received, their loved ones received, fell below the standard it should be. I'm very sorry they've had that experience.
A complaint Kay made was upheld by the Social Care Ombudsman, but the care home retains its CQC rating of good. A spokesperson for the home said it was one rare occasion where they fell short and all matters have been addressed.
I think it's disgusting, really, that somebody's lived, you know, all those years, and at the end of their life, when they need that care, it was just a don't care attitude, and it breaks my heart. And that's what happened to my mum. She should have been loved. I just wanted her to be loved. I just wanted her to be warm. I just wanted her to be clean. And, you know, somebody just to perhaps hold her hand and tell her everything's going to be okay.
Chris was shocked to find his complaint about the maggots was not upheld.
I have not found fault in the care provider's care of Miss Y's wound.
The care company said it's deeply sorry for any upset, adding that maggots in wounds, while rare, can occur quickly during a heatwave.
Enough? All right. OK.
After his aunt's death, his mother's health deteriorated, and Chris gave up work to be her full-time carer.
When I've got a one-word assessment from the CQC saying good, and that good means maggot infestation, how can I trust any care establishment with the care of another person?
With an independent commission due to begin work on how to fix social care in Britain, no one we've spoken to believes care for the elderly is fit for purpose or prepared for the challenges of an ageing population. Becky Johnson, Sky News.
Well, let's bring in Nadra Ahmed now from the National Care Association, which represents small and medium-sized care providers across the UK. Nadra joins us now. Thank you so much for coming on to the UK tonight. You'll have seen Becky Johnson's upsetting, distressing report there. Some families bravely telling their stories about what's happened to their loved ones in care homes. Is this a picture that you recognise, Nadra?
Well, I think it's rare, thankfully. It is rare. But sadly, we do have cases like this, and it is very heartbreaking. I had both my parents in care settings, and I know how challenging it can be when you've got a loved one in a care setting. You're handing over your trust to them to support them, and you're paying for that. And then to be faced with things that you're not happy with. I think that is the challenge, and I truly feel for both those cases that were highlighted, and for anybody else, and really hugely surprised that the regulator hadn't moved in much quicker, and actually nothing's been done since.
Yeah, well, could you elaborate on that? Because the response of the CQC hasn't been good enough for these families. And as you say, these incidents are rare. But as you pointed out, these families are paying for their expertise. They would love to care for their elderly relatives, but for many families, it just doesn't work like that. So they pay often more than a monthly mortgage for expertise and specialist care. But there's a double failure in these cases, a lack of basic care and the failure of the regulator to take action. What do you say to those families? Because it's not that they don't feel that their voices are being heard. They're just not taken any notice of. The CQC, in some of these cases, these homes, still keeping their good rating, which, you know, when you're looking at the case of Kathleen there, Chris Hines talking about his 92-year-old aunt and maggots in her wound, how could that possibly be?
Well, I think it's not only the regulator, and we have to remember that the providers pay the regulator for their registration, so they're funded by the provider sector. And we've had huge problems. You know, the last couple of years, really since COVID, the regulator has been a bit absent, and we've called out on this. And as a matter of fact, last year at this time, it was our letter that kind of landed on their desk to say this is not right. We've got really responsible providers, good providers, the people that we support, telling us that they have, people descend on them in such a way that it's not very supportive. And yet you've got services like the one you've highlighted being not being inspected and nothing happening. I think that these are real challenges. But we also have local authorities who have contracts with services like those. I'm not sure if in this case that was right, but they also then have teams that go in, the contracts are written, and then they are reviewed. So all of these things are methods. We are inspected quite a lot as a sector, and there are lots of people who can go in. Healthwatch can go in. There are so many different people. So once the flag's raised, one wonders why nothing else was done. You know, why were people not listened to? And I think that is making the impact on our sector is that these things then give you this picture of a really horrific sector, whereas the vast majority of provision is really good, it's excellent.
Well, it should be across the board, shouldn't it? And that leads me on to my next question. The CQC, is it fit for purpose? Because as damning as Becky Johnson's report is, and as rare as you say these cases are, this isn't the first report of its nature into the care sector. So is the CQC fit for purpose? Are they taking this seriously?
Well, it won't surprise you to know that I don't think it is fit for purpose. I think if they lived by the rules that they apply to care providers when they come in and inspect us, they would be past requires improvement. They would really be, if we were measuring their performances, when we think about, just that one case or those two cases where nothing was done, if a provider did that and the regulator was there, not responding to complaints, not responding or improving, they would be down there like a ton of bricks. And I think that's really worrying for us, that we have a regulator who, the Secretary of State, when he first came in, said, take the ratings with a pinch of salt. Well, it's easy to say something like that, but do something about it, because that is the public's perception of that service. We've got homes that requires improvement and have not been inspected for absolutely years. And they are excellent homes. I looked at 50 different care homes for my father. I went into outstanding care homes, I went into good homes, and I went into the requires improvement. Some of the required improvement homes, I would happily have placed my dad in. And that's, that shows you that there is something really systematically wrong, because we perceive good to mean good. We perceive outstanding to be outstanding. And I think it's really unfair on those homes that work so hard to be outstanding.
Yeah, there seems to be no uniform measurement. It really does seem to be disjointed. Just a final one, Nadra. Again, I go back to Chris Hines there talking about his 92-year-old aunt Kathleen, and he asked the question, how can I trust any care establishment? And from the picture you've laid out there from your own experience looking around care homes, how can families trust care homes?
Well, I think we have to have trust, and the only way to do that is to go into a care service and see what they're doing. We are grossly underfunded as a sector, and providers are doing their very best. They're actually, the resilience is gone in our sector. Government is not listening to us. They're not funding it. You've seen the same sort of issues in an NHS service, which it hasn't been visited. 50% of NHS hospitals haven't been visited by CQC, but we trust the service because that's what we expect. You must trust the care sector. We are a sector that supports people when they need it most. And as such, help us to get those messages out there that there is really good care, but it has to be properly funded.
Yeah. OK, and Nadra Ahmed making some really good points there. Thank you, CEO of the National Care Association. Appreciate your time tonight reacting to Becky Johnson's report into UK care homes.